Okay, hi Corral. Jasmine, great. Fekan, good. Katie, Gadiel, got you. Taylor. So I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5 people missing. I'll wait 1 more minute and then we'll get started. Justin, okay. Okay, so I think that's it. We'll get started. We were talking about the muscular system on Monday. I have a question. Here's my question. Can you give me, or Darrell? Darrell? Yes, I see you. Great. So we have 8. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so we'll go ahead. What's a good question? Okay, this will let me know if you've actually started thinking of looking at memorizing the muscles. So on Monday, we said that muscles work in antagonistic pairs. So for example, one example of that was the biceps and the triceps. Can anyone give me another example of an antagonistic pair? We did not talk about it in class, but these are 2 pairs that are very well known, especially if you work out. Okay, so even if you didn't work out, you've heard of these muscles. Can you tell me 2 other muscles that are antagonistic pairs? If you don't know the name of the muscle, of those 2 muscles, can you at least tell me their locations? Locations. And I'll wait for your answer. No one? Location? Yes! Who said it? Quadriceps and hamstrings. You have to give your name. Quadriceps and hamstrings in the leg, quadriceps and abductor lungs, the front and back side of the, very good. So Taylor is the only one who identified herself. The other 2 individuals, you need to identify yourself. Whenever you put an answer up, you have to add your name to it because I can't tell who it is without your name. Okay? So moving forward, make sure you add your names to any answer that you give. But very good, very good. So quads and hamstrings. Okay, let's go to, we were talking about the organization of muscle. Oh, here's another, the tibialis anterior and the extensor digitorum. So, okay, very good, Justin. Very good, very good. Okay, great. All right, so this is working pretty good. Let's see how our slides work. In the previous class, the slides froze, and I'm not sure why. So I'm thinking moving forward, I will post the slides before lecture. So the slides are there, and just in case they should freeze, you have them to work with, okay? All right, so I'm going to move on to the lecture, and I will share my page with you, share my screen with you. Okay, so let me find that screen. I have to jump ahead here. Okay, we were looking at the basic structure of the skeletal muscles, and we saw that muscles are connected to bone via tendon, which is made up of connective tissue. And the whole muscle is enclosed in what is known as a fascia. And that fascia encloses several fascicles, and each fascicle contains a cluster or groups of muscle fibers, and muscle fibers are another name for muscle cells. And remember that muscle cells skeletal muscle cells are elongated and they're multinucleated also. Okay, we talked about insertion. Let me find my slide here. Okay. So here's a slide that helps you to visualize the muscle on a molecular level. And I know it gets a little complicated here, but I'm going to play you a little animation which I think helps to understand how muscle is organized. So here we're looking at a muscle cell. This is actually one muscle cell. Yes, one muscle cell. And inside each muscle cell, you have what is known as myofibrils. Myofibrils. You can see that, oops, sorry, wrong move here. Let me get back here. Yeah, look at that. See here? So you have, this is a muscle cell, and inside each muscle cell, you have these myofibrils. So these are bundles of muscle cells. This is a muscle cell here, I'm sorry, muscle cell there. And inside each of these muscle cells, you have myofibrils, myofibrils. So you start off with the whole muscle, okay, whole muscle, and then you have bundles of fascicles, and each fascicle contains muscle cells, several muscle cells, and each muscle cell has myofibrils. And so this is showing you one myofibril, and it gets even smaller. Each myofibril is made up of two types of myofilaments. So in here, you have myofilaments, and there are two types. One is known as actin, and the other is known as myosin. So actin and myosin are the two myofilaments. So it says here, two types of myofilaments. They're both protein, made up of myosin and actin. Okay, that is why muscle has protein. Remember we talked on Monday, you said, when I'm eating chicken, what am I eating? Am I eating muscle? Yes, you're eating muscle, and muscle has a lot of protein because these myofilaments are proteins. So you have myosin and actin. These two myofilaments are they're different size. So one is known as the thick filament, and that's shown here, this yellow one, and the other is known as the thin filament, which is the actin. So you have thick and thin, and so they're arranged in this really interesting pattern here. So that's how these thick and thin filaments are arranged. So this cluster, this arrangement of the actin and myosin is referred to as a sarcomere. A sarcomere. So this is a sarcomere. So along the entire length, I don't know if you could see my arm. Let's see if I could, let me see if you could see it. I'll stop screen sharing and then I'll come back to it here. So let's say this is my entire arm, right? And I have here my biceps, okay? And in the bicep, I have these long cells, these long muscle fibers. Or muscle cells, same thing. Muscle fiber, muscle cells, same thing. These long muscle cells. And in each cell, you have these long myofibrils. Long myofibrils. And in each myofibril, you have these myofilaments, long myofilaments, the actin and myosin. Well, the actin and myosin form units or little, they're organized, I should say, in little sections known as a sarcomere. So along the entire length of my bicep here, you have these sarcomeres. So I have one sarcomere here, and adjacent to it another sarcomere, and another sarcomere, another sarcomere, along the entire length of the muscle. So each muscle is made up of these units of sarcomeres, and these sarcomeres are made up of the actin and myosin. And that is what actually contracts or shortens the muscle. It's the contraction of these sarcomeres that shortens the muscle. So I'm going to go back to the screen sharing and show you the slide again. Where am I? Okay, I'll go from here. Okay, so can adjust that. Okay, so here we, not working there. Let's go here. All right, so here's our unit of contraction. So here's a sarcomere that is relaxed. So this is a muscle that is relaxed. You can see that this is a relaxed sarcomere, and it's wider than a contracted sarcomere. See how small a contracted sarcomere is? Yeah, it's bounded here. There's one end here. Here's another end. So that's a contracted sarcomere. So when a muscle contracts, it means that all these sarcomeres along the entire length of the muscle is contracting. So that's a contracted sarcomere there. That's a relaxed sarcomere. That's a close-up, a magnified view of that. So here's our relaxed sarcomere, okay? And this is our contracted sarcomere. All right, so let me see. Any questions? Let's see. Is it possible to make, Katie, I tried to make the full screen and it is not working. I know what you mean. I tried that. I don't know why. I am seeing it as a full screen, but it's not projecting to you guys as a full screen. And I don't know the reason behind that. So that is one of the reasons I am going to post the slides before lecture so you could follow along that way also, okay? Let me pull up that video, that animation that I want to show you. Yeah, I think this is the one I use here.
In a relaxed muscle, muscle, actin.
Okay, here we go.
In a relaxed muscle, actin and myosin myofilaments lie side by side, and the H zones and I band are at maximum width. During contraction, the actin and myosin myofilaments interact. The actins are pulled toward the center of each myosin myofilament. As a result, the sarcomeres shorten. In the fully contracted muscle, the ends of the actin myofilaments overlap. The H zones disappear, and the I band becomes very narrow.
Okay, here's the question. Did you see the video? Were you able to see the video that I just showed? Please let me know. Yes, it's delayed. It should come, Justin. Give it a few more minutes or seconds, hopefully. No video. This is a little bit more complicated than I thought. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I will post the video. I will post the link for the video, and so you could look at it at another time. Okay? I will post the video. So I got your responses that you could not see the video. So I will post the video so that we could all see it. And you heard the audio for it. Okay, I don't know why. So let's move on. Okay, so what the video showed was really an animation of the sarcomere contraction. So you see how contraction occurs. So how does contraction occur? It occurs when these myosin filaments, the myosin filaments, which are the thick filaments, hold onto the actin and pulls it together and closes up, makes the sarcomere narrow. Let's see if I can find that. No. Oh, Daryl, are you saying you saw the video? You're saying awesome, thank you. Did you see the video, Daryl? Okay, so I'm not hearing from Daryl, so I'll move on. Let's see if I could explain what the video was trying to show here. Okay, so it's saying that in order for this sarcomere to contract, This actin here, see the actin looks like these this orange looking structure, and you can see these little hooks on there. Well, these hooks will bind to, they will form cross bridges with the actin. So these myosin hooks will form cross bridges onto the actin, and as it hooks onto the actin, it will pull them together. And so it shows it pulling the actin molecules together. And when that happens, it causes contraction of the sarcomere. So every time your sarcomere contracts, every time your muscles contract, know that what is happening is that all the sarcomeres along the length of the muscle cells are actually contracting and closing up like you're seeing here. Okay? In order for muscle to contract, you need a nerve impulse. So nerve impulses travel all the way down to the muscle cell. So here you're seeing several muscle fibers. So there's 3 muscle fibers here. 1, 2, 3. 3 muscle fibers. And they're at a junction with, they form a junction with the axon of a nerve. Because you remember, nerve cells contain dendrites and axons. So here we have the axon binding to the 3 cells that we're seeing here. So 3 axon binding here. And so when a nerve impulse is received, it travels all the way down to the axon, and that releases chemicals known as neurotransmitters, and releases it into, it releases it close to the muscle cells. Once that happens, that stimulates the muscles to contract. Okay? How does it do it? Once the neurotransmitter is released, it causes calcium. Calcium is what actually helps in causing muscles to contract. So let's see how that works. So here we have a magnified view of the actin. That's the actin here, okay? And this is at rest. This is no stimulation, no impulse at this point. And so here we have our actin, and bound around the actin you have troponin and tropomyosin. Okay? When calcium is released as a result of the neurotransmitter being traveling down the axon or the nerve cell, once the calcium is released, it binds to the troponin, pulls it away from the actin, and creates the binding sites for myosin. So it pulls on it and allows myosin to bind. When myosin binds, then it pulls the actin together. So pull the actin together. And so that's what we're seeing here. Okay, let me see if I find another slide. Tell me if you see this one. Oh, the question is, does this apply for skeletal muscle, or does all muscle work? Yes, all muscle works this way. Good question, Taylor. They all work this way. Okay, and yes, I will send the link. Oh, this is very frustrating. I'm sorry that you guys can't see it. So it's another link I will be. So I'm going to send 2 links. I'll send one link showing you how the contraction occurs, and another that shows you the role that calcium plays in contraction. Remember we said calcium is needed. It's needed for your skeletal muscle, your bones, right, to build good bones. You also need calcium for muscle contraction. Okay. Yes, Lamar, I got your note. You're saying that you're not able to see the video. It is delayed. This broadcast is about there's about a 17-second delay. So yes, it is delayed. But I'm not sure why the video wasn't why you weren't able to view the video. But I will post the link for it, and so you could take a look at the video at a later time. Okay. And I think what I will do, I will stick with the video because it's very. I mean, I could explain it, but I think seeing the video makes it much more meaningful. Looking at the figures is good. Read the figures, read the text associated with the figures, but also look at the video, and it helps to clear up how muscles contract a lot better. Let me see what else I want to cover here. I think I'll just jump to this here. Where are the fuel sources for muscle contraction derived? Where do we get energy from for contracting our muscles? You get energy you have energy stored in glycogen and fat. So fat is necessary, right? That's where you get fuel for your muscles to contract. And you also have fuel in your blood. Glucose in the blood, fatty acids in the blood, all provide fuel for contraction. And the fuel is in the form of what is known as ATP. ATP. So as these things are broken down, as glycogen and fat, glucose, fatty acids are broken down, it releases ATP, and that provides the energy that you need for your muscles to contract. Okay? Where does ATP come from? It says you have a limited ATP in your muscle, but you also have different pathways for creating this ATP. Creatine phosphate pathway, that's the quickest way to get ATP. So if you need a quick supply of ATP, you could get it from this pathway known as the creatine phosphate pathway. But the amount of ATP that you get from this pathway is so low, it's not sustainable for long periods of time. So you're able to get a quick supply of ATP using the creatine phosphate pathway. And this ATP is built up when, creatine phosphate, I should say, is built up when your muscles are at rest. So when you're at rest, you build up the creatine phosphate, and as you need ATP, the creatine phosphate is broken down via this creatine phosphate pathway, and that releases the ATP necessary. You could also have ATP being produced from fermentation. This is also fast acting, but it leads to lactate buildup. So it's a quick way of getting ATP, but it's not, again, not a very sustainable way. However, the most sustainable form of ATP is from cellular respiration. This type of ATP, when you get ATP derived from this pathway, takes a long time to produce. So it's not a quick ATP supply, but it's much more sustainable. It will keep producing ATP for a long period of time. So let's say you're an athlete, right? And you're running, you're doing a sprint, okay? You need to get a quick supply of ATP. Your body will get that ATP from the creatine phosphate pathway and from fermentation, because these provide a quick supply of ATP. However, if you're running a marathon, you would eventually need to use cellular respiration to sustain that marathon. So as you start the marathon, you will use ATP from the creatine phosphate pathway, you will use ATP from fermentation, you will also use ATP from what is already stored in your muscle, but as you continue running, you would need more ATP. And that additional ATP is produced via cellular respiration. Okay, and it says cellular is an aerobic type of aerobic process, meaning oxygen is required to make that ATP. And this is showing you the different pathways we talked about. The creatine phosphate pathway. This is the cellular respiration pathway, and this is the fermentation pathway for producing ATP. All right, let me see if you have any questions here. Okay, how can you access the video? I will post a link for the video on the Learning Hub. Okay. The other question, can you resize the original PowerPoint? So I tried that. It is not taking over this. I attempted to do that. It's actually on my screen, it takes over the entire slide. But I'm not sure why it's not taking over the entire slide when it's being broadcasted. For some reason, it only shows you the original PowerPoint window. So I would have to, what I plan on doing in the future is to post these slides before lecture so that you will have them available for you. Okay? All right, let's go back. Let me see, what else do I want to cover here? I'll start here. Let's see. So muscle fibers come in two forms. You have two forms. You have what are known as fast twitch fibers and slow twitch fibers. So fast twitch fibers, these rely on the creatine phosphate pathway and fermentation. So these are the ones that rely on quick supply of ATP, and they use an anaerobic method. This ATP is produced without oxygen being necessary. So fermentation and the creatine phosphate pathway do not require oxygen in order for them to produce ATP. However, the slow twitch fibers, these require oxygen. These rely on cellular respiration in order to make the ATP that's necessary. And it's showing you the difference. Some other differences. For example, in color, the fast twitch are lighter, the slow twitch are darker. The fast twitch are designed for strength, while the slow twitch is designed for endurance. Fast twitch has few mitochondria, and mitochondria is the site of cellular respiration. So you'd expect the fast twitch fibers, which rely on fermentation and creatine phosphate, to have less mitochondria than the slow twitch, which relies on cellular respiration. They have a lot of mitochondria. And also blood vessels. So slow twitch has more blood vessels. That's what helps to make them darker too. And the myoglobin present also makes them a little darker. And this shows you here both how in one muscle you'll have a mixture of fast twitch and slow twitch fibers. So this is one muscle here, and you can see the muscle cells, because remember, muscle cells are the same as muscle fibers, and it's showing you some slow twitch fibers intermingled with fast twitch fibers. Okay, all right. So quick health focus, benefits of exercise. I'm sure you guys know about this. Basically, you could think of exercise as a fountain of youth, okay? Keeps you looking young for a long time, but it also makes you stronger. So I'm not going to go over that too much. You guys can read that. I want to end by looking at some common muscle disorders. Spasms, any sudden involuntary muscle contraction. And these could be quite painful. Seizures, multiple spasms of the skeletal muscle, cramps, strong, painful spasms, often in the leg and foot. A muscle strain is when you have tearing or stretching of a muscle. A sprain is when you have twisting of a joint that involves muscle, ligament, tendons, blood vessels. So a sprain could be quite painful because you're going to involve some nerves there, and that could be quite painful. Okay? And finally, some muscle diseases, fibromyalgia, chronic achy muscles. And again, it's better understood. When it first, a few years ago, it was not well understood, and a lot of people were misdiagnosed. But for some reason, fibromyalgia seems to come on after someone has suffered a traumatic event. So sometimes people who have had, say they were involved in a car crash and, no obvious physical damage, but weeks later, they tend to have these chronic achy muscles, and sometimes it can last for years. And people's lifestyles have had to change as a result of having this fibromyalgia. There's muscular dystrophy, which is a group of genetic disorders in which the muscles progressively degenerate and become weak over time. There's myasthenia gravis, an autoimmune disease where the receptor for acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter, becomes weak, is degraded or damaged. And as a result, the muscles become weak. And you see it mainly in the face and neck and in the extremities. And then there's ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And this disease results in degeneration of motor neurons. And motor neurons are involved, is what determines or voluntary movement. So me moving my hand, for example, or you moving your hand or walking, those are the neurons that are involved. Those are motor neurons that determine how you move. And so when you have ALS, these neurons degenerate, so you're not able to move as you will. This is someone with myasthenia gravis, and you can see loosening of the muscle around the face region. So the muscles are becoming weak around the face region. Okay. I think that's it. Let's see. Okay, question. What do you mean by fermentation process to obtain ATP? Is this liquid intake? Is this liquid intake or other chemicals in the body? Okay. Fermentation is not liquid intake. So fermentation is the breakdown of glucose into a product known as pyruvic acid. And as glucose is broken down into pyruvic acid, it produces ATP. So when you eat food, when you eat glucose, whether it's from carbohydrate, when you eat carbs, your body has to take those carbs and break them down into smaller units. And as those carbs are being broken down, ATP is produced. There are several ways, there are more than one, there are two ways of doing that, I should say. One is via fermentation. So breaking down of that glucose into pyruvic acid. As that happens, ATP is released. Or you can have cellular respiration, where glucose is broken down, but it's broken down via many more steps than fermentation involves. So there's several steps that are involved in glucose breakdown via cellular respiration, and it takes a longer time, but more ATP is produced. Okay, so fermentation, it is not taking in a liquid or other chemicals in the body. It's just the name given for the breakdown of glucose into pyruvic acid. And also fermentation takes place when oxygen is not present. When oxygen is not present. So fermentation is not the first. As human beings, we don't use fermentation readily. Well, we use fermentation if only we don't have oxygen around, enough oxygen. But once we have enough oxygen around, our bodies will use the cellular respiration to make ATP. Okay, so Gadiel, tell me if I answered your question. Gadiel, are you there? Just checking to see if I answered your question. Okay, great. It makes sense. All right. So let's see. I think we're pretty much done with this chapter, guys. Yeah. We are done with this chapter. So that means we're finished for the week for this chapter. Next week, we're going to cover the nervous system. The nervous system. Okay? So we won't meet on Friday, but we will meet on next week and we will do the nervous system. Okay? Or the review, I will put it up by tomorrow. today's pretty hectic for me, but I'll be sure to put it up by tomorrow. I'll put up the review by tomorrow. Your test is on the 23rd, so we have a little time. Any other questions before I go? Okay, looks like we're okay here with questions. So I'll see you we'll meet on Monday. And I'll have today's slides posted and the slides for next week. Yes, there is lab on Monday. Lab on Monday will be on the nervous system. Thanks for the prayers. We need it. You're welcome. Lecturing in the dorm. Pretty convenient, huh? That's good. You're welcome. Bye. If you have any other questions, go ahead and shoot me an email. But yes, there's lab on Monday, and I will have today's slides posted, and then the slides for next week, I will have them posted before, because this it's not projecting the way I would like it to. Okay? Bye.